And 3, 2, 1. Meeting is now streaming on Facebook. What a heck of an introduction. I'm getting away from my WWE voice, by the way, Maria. A return visitor, a DOYO Live alum, Maria Stevens of Stevens Coaching and Consulting, breaking down today TikTok and a DOYO Live exclusive. One of my huge pet peeves. Ba-ba-ba! Finger touches on my computer screen. And Maria just let me know she's got a touchscreen computer. Yeah. I have a 2.5-year-old that's got an iPad. That's for another conversation. But he thinks my desktop computer is a touchscreen, which now I have a bunch of little pet peeve, touchy things. Nice memory, Leo. More importantly, Maria is here to coach us, guide us through conversations, at least what she can in the DOYO Live Marketing Show, on communication leadership in the time of coming out of a global pandemic in COVID-19. Maria, thank you for making a return appearance. It is good to see you. How have you been?
Hanging in like everyone else, right? Just kind of taking it one day at a time. And as everything has gone on, trying to adjust and trying to find the best path forward for myself, for my family, for my clients. And it's been an interesting journey, like it has for so many folks. And it's definitely not been easy or comfortable, but we continue to navigate through.
Yeah, absolutely. Early on, like when I was having some conversations with people, obviously everybody pulled to remote work, and you obviously have that experience with remote work. And even previous lives where, I was employed with GE Healthcare, we ran a $1 billion healthcare IT portfolio, and everybody was in 4 corners of the United States. So I brought that remote culture to a lot of my clients, but it was reminded to me, like, we weren't just working remotely, we were working remotely through a pandemic.
Yes, absolutely. It was really such a quick adjustment that people had to make. And it was really evident early on. Those who had a contingency plan probably in their business were able to really make that shift pretty quickly. Those who hadn't and really weren't equipped as much for a virtual working experience, it was a bit more painful for them and obviously not as smooth, but everybody found their way and then sort of like found their footing. But to your point, there were all sorts of other issues that were surfacing and popping up. You have the infrastructure and the technology piece of it, but you also have a really tremendous people component and a human relations component and leadership side. And that's what people were really reaching out to me on, to understand how to really navigate through that and how to support people, how to just balance the variety of emotions that people were feeling and grappling with on a daily basis.
Yeah, right. So the kindness, the check-in, the whole, mantra behind that. Talk to me a little bit about, like, so we have a mutual connection in Dawn Dragish, and Dawn and I have been doing some work together, and we were talking about this at the beginning of the pandemic and how we were taking clients to work with them remotely, and then there's the marketing component. So like when you do marketing, you're like, somebody will say like, well, my email's down, can you fix that, because that's a part of marketing some reason or other. And then you're like, that's an IT issue, but okay, I'll help you. And like, remote work culture is really not my sweet spot, although I've done it before. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I was like, if I was running around last summer, jump in the DeLorean, go back to last July, and I was running around town going, hey, we want to help to establish your remote work culture, people would like throw me out the door and laugh me out the building. Mm-hmm. So there really wasn't an opportunity through, obviously, through this pandemic to go and pick up new clients to help them through that. But your existing clients, what were some of the things that you did along the way to help them with their communication strategies and leadership strategies through a remote culture?
Yeah, there was certainly lots of outreach and lots of inquiries around to that point, virtual support and virtual leadership during this quick transition that people had to make. And a lot of the inquiries early on were things like, how do I really manage a remote team? You know, many people were leading with people, they were used to being in the office, seeing folks that they were leading visibly and in their presence face to face every day. And that's one scenario. And then doing it remotely, not seeing people, not having as many opportunities for face-to-face connection makes it a totally different reality. So a lot of the inquiries and a lot of the work that I was doing early on was just helping people figure out, okay, let's brainstorm, let's figure out, okay, let's identify where are we at right now, what's working, what's not working, what are the relationships like, what are you sensing is going on within your people, but also within you, what are you feeling, right? So we know that in the best case scenario, non-pandemic, those leaders that are really compassionate are the ones that are able to generate the greatest level of commitment and loyalty and engagement. In a pandemic, it's even, unequivocally more important, right? To just be so compassionate and to be caring. So in order to do that means that relational component for leaders has to go up. And for some leaders, they're naturally relational. And so it was just a subtle tweak of their approach. For other leaders, they focus much more on the operations and the tactics and the, urgency and procedures. And so for those leaders, it was really helping them tap into more of that relational side to find what works for them so that they can really foster care and compassion during really difficult times.
No doubt. Maria Stevens coaching and consulting. We're talking about communication and also leadership through obviously a pandemic. And I agree with that. I think that the time, obviously, with some of the companies that I work with was the marketing department. I was like, you need to take a leadership role within the company and check in on people on a daily basis. Like, now I'm not talking like, where are you at with this report or where are you at with this presentation? Like literally like asking people how they're doing, investing the mental health aspect. And here's the one thing, like we shouldn't just be checking on the old lady across the street during a pandemic. Mm-hmm. We should be checking on the old lady across the street like all the time. Mm-hmm. And we should probably be checking on the coworker regardless of pandemic or not. Do you think that that's a silver lining that kind of comes out of this, that 9/11, niceness that we had, and unity that brought us together? Does that come out of this?
I think it certainly can. And I would really encourage, and I have encouraged many clients to look at that as, and I've positioned it, and we've talked about it more so around what is an opportunity that can emerge from this kind of crisis, right? Because it has been a crisis situation, continues to be, and it continues to evolve. So, it's an opportunity. We know that, again, we always are looking for building a culture of engagement and relationships and morale. And all of those things are fostered through frequent, compassionate communication, care, empathy, and all the things that I work with my clients with all the time. Absolutely, this is an opportunity to make that even more robust. And really, by doing that, it also fosters creativity. It fosters imagination so that as companies, we can come out of this on the other side with new possibilities we never would have even imagined. So does it mean that, boy, this is easy, or this is such a blessing? I mean, of course not, but we can look at it and say, how can we foster these relationships so that we can make a creative kind of future and design it the way that we want. We've done things as simple as having companies with a lot of employees do kind of a 5 and 5, like every day, reaching out to 5 employees you haven't talked to in a while and 5 clients. Just little simple things like that. The need for communication has grown exponentially.
That's a wonderful point. And by the way, so to build some context, because we are building an audience right now on Facebook Live, give everybody just that quick high-level elevator speech as to exactly what you do and how you work with customers.
Great. So mostly I work with business owners and leaders from a leadership development standpoint. That could be at the individual level, the team level, or the organizational level. all around creating a vision, creating a stronger culture that ultimately fosters increased loyalty, greater engagement, and overall increased organizational success.
And Maria is a part of the DOYO Live family. She was a speaker at our event last year. Amazing questions, by the way, and I totally peed off like a ton of millennials that were sitting in our audience because I had some interesting questions and you had some feedback on management of the, and I say that with tongue in cheek. Let's have some fun. It's okay to laugh, people, right? It's, you know, like I feel like the seriousness and the tone right now, obviously in the country amongst on so many levels is obviously, you know, so serious and for the right reasons, but it's okay to smile.
Absolutely.
And so here's a question I have for you, because I think also that through all this, as companies had to go develop that remote culture, and you know, you're well read, you're well versed, you pay attention to what goes on in this environment, and Yahoo was like, we're bringing everybody to work back in, you got to be in the office, and people invest a ton of money into their commercial real estate. Do you think that business owners, leaders are reevaluating the investment of commercial space in lieu of this necessity to work remotely, and how they'll manage that? You know, we can all come out and play again, but you think that they'll go back to saying work at home 2-3 days a week, come in the office? How's that looking for you, your clients, and what you think that you'll project in the future?
I do think that there's going to be a reevaluation. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was thinking it the other day. I have a client that bought a brand new building last year. You know, really, they moved in 6 months before this all happened. Then they were all working out of their homes, you know, 6 months later.
Yeah.
Who could have predicted it? So I think it's going to be looked at as, hey, boy, this actually worked greater than we thought it would. It was actually, you know, more streamlined and more efficient than we anticipated. There's definite upside to it, and there's definite downside to it. And I've seen different viewpoints and I've seen different perspectives. I think the short answer is yes. I think people are going to reevaluate it now, because post COVID-19 is a new reality and we've learned from it. So with those learnings, how do we want to work moving forward? And I think the best thing companies can do is evaluate that from all angles. Obviously, a cost perspective is one. Additionally, though, what works for our culture, and what do the people at our company say, and how do they feel too, and what ultimately is going to be the best decision for us moving forward. And I believe the best thing to do is for it to be a collective decision that's in line with the vision of the business. But it's certainly going to be reevaluated, and it's going to be a real turning point. I think when we look back on this for years, you know, in years to come, I believe it is going to be really a turning point in terms of the way people work.
You're and great insight, and you're a really people intensive person when it comes to client involvement. So like engagement, you're with them in person, the physical, like, you know, 1 day a week, one time, right?
Yep.
Now, how has that, you know, you did you shift your consultations to Zoom or whatever online mechanism, right?
Yep.
And will you continue to operate in that function, or will you go back to the way it was of being in front of people one-on-one, one-to-many in those physical settings?
You know, I think a lot of it is going to be dictated by what the clients prefer. And again, that's kind of an extension of what we were just talking about, right? It's going to be sometimes there's just a need to be face-to-face and you prefer that. And there's just a vibration that you get when you're in person, right? And that energy is unique to a face-to-face dynamic. However, I had been pretty heavy virtual based prior to this, but of course been 100% virtual based. And in leading, I just wrapped up like a 5-week leadership development series for leaders, and it was of course all virtual. And it actually went so incredibly well. And there was a lot of upside to it that we hadn't expected. Like number one of the obvious benefits really was geographically, there were no limitations for people because we weren't meeting in person.
Sure.
Number two, it was more efficient in a sense, since people could just kind of hop into the meeting and then hop out and then get back to their day rather than driving somewhere and adding all that time in. And there was also, I think, a special, we leveraged some of the cool Zoom add-ons like the breakout rooms and things like that. And there was really a a cool and I think unique connection that came out of that from a virtual standpoint. So it taught me a lot about virtual facilitation and the fact that it can work really well. So I guess moving forward, I think we're open to any and all combinations of that. I'm going to, probably sort of accept, I guess, virtual as a greater plan B than I used to in the past. I used to just be much more of a stickler for like, geez, for coaching, I really love to pick up on people's nonverbals and I really want to be in person. However, it has worked really well. So now I'm like, hey, face-to-face or virtual, and that increases my opportunities as well geographically.
I think it does, right? I think it obviously it expands the scale, the footprint.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote an article, and early on is that the way that people are starting to turn to approach, my area of favorite conversation is marketing and communication, is that you started turning to the things that we were blasting, iPhones, social media. Everybody's paying so much attention to social media, they're forgetting to connect in real person. Then suddenly these became our lifelines.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you also saw is like people, not just the kindness conversation with the lady next door, but they also started to say, I'm taking all my content, I'm moving it online, I'm going to continue to do my workout classes, educate people. And I'm a big fan and a 10-year product of building audiences through the free content distribution. And then if you find the value, you join my email list, and then we start to nurture you into these other aspects. And I'm hoping that people continue on with that mantra of, if you've got a gym and you're gonna continue on with your 1 time per week Facebook Live or your yoga class, and the reason is this: if this proves anything, it proves that we can work remotely, be productive. It proves that you can scale beyond the geography boundary of Mahoning, Trumbull, Columbiana County, right? But it also proves that people still want to connect in person. We yearn for that.
Yes.
So like if you own the gym, just because 1 day a week you're giving away free tips online, you're building community, and maybe out of necessity, time, whatever that is, people might go to that online workout, but they really want to come in.
Yeah.
Right? Like DOYO Live serves its purpose, and I don't know the future of the event. It's too premature in my eyes to make that call. I'm not doing that. We like to anticipate that we're doing a fall event, but guidelines change every day at 2:00.
Yes, they do.
So we're managing towards that. Like we're like, okay, we'll figure that out. But in the same note, what we do know from delivering content online for 5 years now is that as much as people can consume this online, they want to come see us in person. They want to come connect in person. They want to shake hands or elbow bumps or virtual hugs, right? So
right. Yeah.
So before we jumped on, we were talking about how much of an expert you are at TikTok.
Oh, more so it's my daughter, but yeah.
So did I see you dancing on TikTok?
Me?
Did I see you do a TikTok dance?
With her, not by myself. Let's make that clear,
okay. Which makes it perfectly legitimate for all dance moms to do the TikTok dance with their, but
of course.
Very interesting conversation, right? So like, I'm like humbly bragging about the 230,000 views of one of my TikTok videos that's just completely stupid with, messing around with my kids and my business. I've got to be cognizant of all social media platforms if somebody were to call me. But you said something interesting. We were talking a little bit about Netflix shows and whatnot. And you and I kind of like see Netflix and we're like, oh, that's on Netflix. But your daughter came at you from a whole different angle.
Yeah. We were trying to figure out something to watch on Netflix, and the whole Tiger King thing popped up, and she's like, oh, that's the thing from TikTok. Like she recognized it because of the TikTok that had been made about the Tiger King, cast, which I just thought was wow. But it makes sense because I'm seeing, you're seeing music is becoming, known and popular because it's in a TikTok video. It's actually becoming a marketing vehicle.
Yeah.
Which I think is really just, it's interesting, and you wouldn't expect it. At first, it was just this thing that like little, kids were just recreating videos, but now the music that these videos are set to it's actually helping their music get out into the marketplace.
So this is like you've been to my in-person networking events, so I'm usually able to say things off the cuff that make you probably fall on the ground. But like everybody wanted to poo-poo, so that's my official marketing term for the day. Everybody wanted to poo-poo Facebook, right? And then now people talk about, like kind of marketing to seniors, and they're like, well, social media is at the avenue or this. And I'm like, look, like if you have a business and you're marketing to a 65-year-old person, I want you to keep something in your mind. That person was 50 years old when Facebook came out.
Mm-hmm.
The chances of them being on Facebook is significantly great. Even if they were a slow or late adopter, they got on it at 55 years old and been using it for a decade.
Yeah.
So people are like, well, like we've got to talk to the kids of the 65-year-olds. Those 65-year-olds were utilizing social media. It's been around for 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting about TikTok, would you ever have a client utilize this as a communication tool to build up internal morale at a company?
I think it's a great idea. And it's funny, it just came up in a meeting the other day. So folks were asking me, because that's one of the things with virtual work is how can we make it, unique and engaging and creative? You don't want people just going from one meeting all day long and you're stuck behind the computer. What are some things that you can do creatively to make it fun? And that's a great way to do something fun for team building and create just laughter and connection and really bond during an interesting, just such a unique time. So I love that idea, and we might use it with clients because they're always looking for ideas and they're looking for ways, unique ways and creative ways to support one another.
We've got a comment from a viewer. Matt Prologo says hi.
Hello.
All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump into rapid fire questions.
Oh boy. Okay.
Are you ready?
I am ready.
But like some of these are like redos because you've been on before. Maybe you remember.
That gives me a little bit of an advantage, but I'm okay with that.
Okay. Are you an iPhone or Android user?
iPhone all the way.
Last good business book that you read or recommend anybody reads?
Ooh, Range by David Epstein.
We're going to go off topic just a minute here. We're going to go back off the business conversation, get to know you a little better. We brought it up. Tiger King or The Last Dance?
The Last Dance. Yeah.
Best pizza in Youngstown?
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to go with Avalon.
And this is kind of a loaded question. I think I know the answer to this. Best church festival in the Youngstown region?
Come on, I can't do it. I'm too loyal. I'm gonna have to plead the fifth on that one. I patronize many festivals. I'm heartbroken that so many of them are not going to be happening this year. It's like one of our main summer things to do is to go to festivals. So hoping that, many of them will. I think Niles Mount Carmel's going to still do food takeout. I hope a lot of them do that because it's like a key component of summer in Youngstown is festivals, right?
Listen, man, you don't have to front. The mic drop moment is the Mont Carmel Festival in Lowville. Don't sleep on that. Nobody else got the baby doll dance where they blow off fireworks right in front of people.
If my entire in my entire life, even when I've lived out of town, I've never missed it.
All right. And last but not least, best business advice you either have received or you give?
Well, I'll have to go with just being an entrepreneur and the roller coaster ride of knowing that it's an up and down cycle. It is part of business. That's normal. And having had numerous ups and downs coming into this pandemic really helped me navigate through it because it's part of the normal. It's part of the fabric. So when things pressed in and it got challenging and uncertain and scary and unknown, it was really pretty normal for me being an entrepreneur. And so anyone that's on that path knows. And I think that if you're in business, if you own a business, you're running a business, prepare for the ups and downs that are part of the journey of what business is.
I would totally agree with that. Like, I just think that the whole landscape feels like an entrepreneur was like kind of created like just to kind of ride this through.
Yeah.
Last but not least, there's one more thing I wanted to tackle, and it's actually something that you brought up is kind of that emotional roller coaster ride as we come out of this.
Yeah.
So I can share just a personal example of it. When Leo had his open heart surgery, for that 6-month time span from the time that he was born to the time that we had the surgery, we went into our kind of our own 6-month lockdown. Doctor said flu or cold could have killed a baby with a hole in his heart. We decided to socially distance before it was popular. Look at the Schiraldis, early adopters.
Yes.
We went to church. That's where you go. And then some little old lady that weekend manhandled Leo, like, oh, he's so cute. So we're like, uh-oh, only one of us is going. We limited, we washed, we bathed, we cleaned their clothes regularly, more so than I have an Italian wife that she cleaned even more than an Italian woman would clean. And thank God with levity and faith, and we got through all that. Yeah. But then after it ended is when it hit me. Month 1, 2, 3 is when like it all kind of, the adrenaline rushed off, everything was fine, but like that's when it really started to like kind of settle in with myself. What are some things that people can do, and they can contact you directly obviously for more advice, but what are 1 or 2 things that people can do as we come out of COVID to be able to help them emotionally deal with getting back to life?
Well, I think that's a great point and a great perspective that you shared, and I can so much appreciate that. It's very common where, people will hunker down and we will get into that crisis adrenaline mode, which is kind of like really what you did during that period of time. You were in that 6-month, like, tightly hanging on and so careful about everything. And your brain was so focused on survival that you really didn't have a chance to think about anything else. And once that imminent fear is past, we then need to kind of deal with all the emotions that are left over. And there's no easy way around that. It is simple as it sounds. It's really paying attention and being aware and taking that time to kind of just identify what you're feeling, and then so that you can know how to reach out and get the support that you need. Most of the time as leaders, what we do when we're faced with a problem or a crisis is we hunker down to figure out process, procedure, control, locking into focusing onto operations. But from a leadership standpoint, one of the greatest things that we can do if we want to support others is to also be aware of what we're feeling inside. And in order to do that, you have to be still, you have to be quiet so that you can identify what you're feeling and then build that connection with others. So to be able to just really tap into that, taking a few minutes in the morning and understanding, okay, well, how am I feeling? Sounds like a basic question, but in COVID-19, it's not easy to answer all the time. Sometimes people aren't sure. You need that time to be still, to think it through and to be aware, and all those words that you've heard before about awareness and presence, but that's truly a main survival skill for people to thrive moving forward.
Maria, thank you for taking the time to join me today. It's always wonderful to see you. I can't wait till we can see you again in person. And thank you so much. Maria Stevens Coaching and Consulting, leadership training, communication training, workshops, ongoing. You want to check out her website. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. Let us know what you think. Give us a comment. Share this with a friend that you know is going to benefit from all this great information. I want to thank all of you for dropping on by today. This was presented by iSynergy. Thank you.
Thanks, Dennis.
Thank you.